Have you ever noticed how the quiet after a family argument can feel heavier than the argument itself? The house might be calm, but inside, everyone is carrying unspoken words and unsettled feelings. Trust, once shaken, doesn't automatically fall back into place. But here's the good news: trust can be rebuilt, slowly and gently, if we approach it with care. Trust often feels like something big and abstract, but in reality it is held together by the smallest, everyday gestures. After a family argument, those little signals matter more than sweeping speeches or promises. Think about how powerful it feels when someone quietly makes you a cup of tea after a tense moment, or when they gently place a hand on your shoulder without saying a word. These are not grand apologies, yet they carry more weight than paragraphs of explanation. Small gestures work because they are physical reminders that love and connection still exist beneath the disagreement, even when words are hard to find. Imagine a mother and her grown son who had an argument over finances. Days later, instead of diving back into the debate, she leaves a family photo album on his desk with a sticky note. "Look at page 12. It always makes me laugh." That act is not about solving the financial dispute. It's about saying, "We are bigger than this argument. Our shared story is still intact." In families, those tiny threads of kindness are what keep the fabric from unraveling completely. What makes these gestures powerful is their simplicity. They do not demand an immediate response, and they don't force the other person into emotional territory they may not be ready for. A plate of fruit left in the kitchen, a text that simply says, "Drive safe," or even quietly folding the laundry without a word can all become signals of goodwill. It's a way of showing, "I still care about you, even if I'm upset." That kind of unspoken message lowers defenses in a way that direct confrontation often cannot. There's also something universal and timeless about small gestures. They work across generations because they bypass complicated words and go straight to the heart. Grandparents might slip a candy into a child's hand after a disagreement, just as a spouse might brew coffee for their partner the morning after an argument. These are not solutions to the problem, but they are doorways back to warmth and trust. The beauty is that no gesture has to be perfect. In fact, it is often the imperfect, slightly awkward attempt that feels the most genuine. A father stumbling through making pancakes for the first time after clashing with his daughter may get more laughs than praise, but that very effort becomes a memory that heals. Over time, these little moments stack on top of each other, creating a quiet bridge where both sides can meet again. Trust, in the end, is rarely rebuilt by a single act. It grows slowly, with every thoughtful step that says, without words, "I still choose us." Listening is one of the simplest acts in theory, yet one of the hardest to practice after a family argument. When we feel hurt, the instinct is to defend ourselves, to explain why we were right, or to clarify what we really meant. But the problem with rushing to explain is that it often closes the door before the other person has had a chance to feel heard. Real healing begins when someone feels that their side of the story matters, even if we don't fully agree with it. It's less about solving the problem on the spot and more about creating a space where emotions can breathe. Picture a daughter upset with her father for dismissing her opinion in front of relatives. The father may want to immediately say, "I didn't mean it that way." But if he slows down and simply asks, "Can you tell me what hurt you the most?" he allows her to pour out feelings that otherwise would stay bottled inside. In that moment, his silence and attention are more valuable than any explanation he could give. The act of listening itself becomes a form of apology because it shows humility and care. A helpful way to think about it is like holding a container. When someone is upset, they are overflowing with feelings. If you try to pour your own emotions into the same container, it spills everywhere. But if you hold steady and allow their words to be placed inside, you give them relief. You don't have to agree with every word, and you don't have to fix the issue right away. Simply being present and resisting the urge to interrupt can be the first step toward rebuilding trust. Across generations, listening often carries different meanings. Older parents sometimes feel their voices are fading in a fast, changing world, while younger family members may feel dismissed when elders lean on tradition instead of understanding their perspective. In both cases, being willing to pause and let the other side talk without rushing to counter is what softens the distance. A grandmother nodding as her granddaughter explains why she wants to spend holidays differently doesn't mean she agrees, but that gesture of respect makes the conversation safe. Listening more than explaining also breaks the cycle of defensiveness. Arguments thrive when each side keeps waiting for their turn to respond. But when one person decides to truly listen, the tone shifts. Walls lower, voices soften, and the possibility of trust returning feels real. It may not solve everything in a single sitting, but it lays the groundwork for connection to grow again, one patient pause at a time. Shared traditions have a quiet power in families because they remind everyone of what existed long before the disagreement. After an argument, when emotions are still raw, trying to resolve things through heavy discussions can feel overwhelming. But traditions act like a bridge, allowing people to reconnect without needing to dive straight back into the conflict. They provide a safe and familiar setting where connection is possible, even if words are hard to find. Imagine a family who argued over how to spend holiday money. A week later, instead of reopening the debate, they gather for their usual Sunday dinner. The table is set the same way it always has been, the same favorite dishes are passed around, and laughter bubbles up when someone spills the gravy, just like they do every year. In that moment, the argument doesn't vanish, but it loses its grip. Everyone is reminded of their shared history, their rituals, and the comfort that comes from simply being together. Traditions work because they are deeply rooted in identity. They say, "This is who we are as a family." Whether it's a yearly trip to the same park, a bedtime story passed down from grandparents, or even a quirky ritual like singing while washing dishes, these patterns carry emotional weight. They don't just distract from the argument, they remind each person of the bond that has always been larger than the conflict itself. These shared moments are especially important across generations. Adult children might roll their eyes at old customs, but when tensions rise, they often find comfort in returning to them. Lighting a candle at the dinner table, pulling out the same board game played since childhood, or flipping through an old photo album allows space for reconnection without forcing anyone into difficult words too soon. It's not about pretending the conflict didn't happen, but about gently reminding everyone of the love and stability that traditions carry. What makes this approach so powerful is that it feels natural. No one has to say, "Let's fix this." Instead, the tradition itself does the work of softening the atmosphere. A family movie night after a hard week, or the ritual of sharing tea in the evening gives people something familiar to hold on to while emotions cool down. Over time, these traditions act as anchors, keeping the family steady even when storms come. Arguments may shake trust, but traditions remind us of the deeper thread, that we belong to one another, and that bond is worth protecting. It often feels natural, after a family argument, to want to patch things up right away. We think that if we push for a conversation, explain our side, or demand resolution, the wound will heal faster. But sometimes the opposite is true. Stepping back and allowing space can actually bring people closer in the long run. It may sound counterintuitive, yet distance can be one of the gentlest forms of respect. It tells the other person, "I value your peace as much as I value being understood." Consider a father and son who clash over a decision about retirement savings. The father feels judged, the son feels ignored, and neither is ready to truly listen. If the son keeps pressing to fix it now, the tension grows sharper. But if he takes a quiet step back, maybe by choosing not to call for a few days, or by writing a short note instead of insisting on a talk, the father has room to reflect. When they finally reconnect, the conversation feels less like a battle and more like a meeting of equals. The pause becomes a way of lowering the temperature so trust can return more naturally. This kind of space works because family relationships are rarely about one single argument. They are built on years of shared meals, shared worries, and shared joys. By stepping back, you are not walking away from the relationship. You are simply allowing breathing room for emotions to settle. It's like loosening your grip on a rope during a tug of war. The moment you stop pulling, the tension eases, and both sides can stand a little steadier. Space also gives perspective. When we're caught up in anger, it's easy to see the other person only as an opponent. But time apart allows us to remember the fuller picture, the sibling who once stood up for us in school, the parent who worked long hours to provide, the spouse who has shared decades of laughter. These memories reframe the conflict, reminding us that the argument is just one chapter in a much bigger story. Stepping back doesn't mean shutting down or giving up. It means trusting that silence and patience have their own healing power. When the other person sees that you're not forcing, not pushing, but quietly holding space, it often creates curiosity and openness. And when you finally return, you both come with softer voices and a clearer heart. In that way, distance becomes the very thing that brings you closer again. Consistency is what transforms fragile promises into something believable. After a family argument, trust is not restored by a single apology or a single kind act. It comes from repeating small, steady actions that slowly convince the other person, I can rely on you again. This is where time becomes a healer, not because days passing makes people forget, but because the daily proof of care begins to outweigh the memory of hurt. Think about a couple who argued about how to support their adult children financially. The husband might say, I'll be more mindful of your opinion. But if the very next week he makes another unilateral decision, the words lose their weight. On the other hand, if he pauses before big choices, checks in gently, and keeps doing that again and again, his consistency shows that he is serious. It's not dramatic, but it's dependable. That reliability is what slowly rebuilds confidence in the relationship. Consistency works because it reduces doubt. After an argument, the other person often wonders, was that apology real? Will they slip back into old habits? Each repeated action, whether it's speaking calmly, showing up when promised, or maintaining respectful boundaries, answers those questions without needing new speeches. Over time, the predictability becomes comforting, like a steady rhythm that reassures the heart. This is especially powerful across generations. A grandparent who promises to be more patient with technology can build trust with their grandchild simply by practicing it each time, even if imperfectly. A parent who says, I'll call you on Fridays, and then follows through week after week sends a deeper message than a long explanation ever could. These consistent patterns create stability, and stability is the soil where trust grows strongest. It's also worth remembering that consistency doesn't mean perfection. Slip-ups may happen, but what matters is returning to the promise again and again. A father who raises his voice but then quickly acknowledges it and tries again shows more growth than one who pretends it didn't happen. The repetition of effort matters more than flawless execution. Over time, these steady actions become like threads weaving a torn fabric back together. Each one may feel small on its own, but together they create something durable. The family member who once doubted begins to relax, not because of one grand gesture, but because day after day they see proof. In the end, consistency is not flashy, it is quiet, steady, and deeply powerful in restoring trust. Rebuilding trust after a family argument isn't about dramatic apologies or perfect speeches. It's about gentle steps, small gestures, listening deeply, leaning on traditions, giving space, and showing consistency. Over time, these choices remind your family that the bond is stronger than the conflict. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone you love? Share your story in the comments. Your experience may be the encouragement another family needs today. And if this video spoke to you, consider subscribing for more conversations on family bonding and harmony.